as the months keep going on, we're going to be taking off like training wheels here and there. So for example, when we first launched for the first couple of weeks, Taiko was like the sole proposer and prover. But now that we've finally gotten past that point, we've actually made the whole prover proposer network permissionless. So anybody's able to come along and run a prover or a proposer, propose blocks, prove blocks without permission. You just have to run the node software itself. And so that's a pretty big thing in the rollup space. As far as I know, there's no other projects that currently have like a fully permissionless proposer or prover like sequencer set.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of Bitfinex Talks. I'm your host, Ricardo Martinez. Today, my guest is Alex de Villiers from Taiko. He's the community manager, and he's been kind enough to come on the show to talk to us about the Taiko project. Alex, thank you for coming on the show, man. How are you doing today?
Oh, man, I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for the invite. Happy to be
Indeed.
here.
I'm super happy to have you on. Alex, I guess for the first question, for those that aren't familiar with Taiko, can you kind of explain what the project is, like what the use case is, what problems you guys are solving?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure many people have been, exposed to the world of like layer 2s, rollups. So Taiko is an Ethereum equivalent layer 2. So we are fully EVM equivalent. So we're like the exact same, execution space as like mainnet Ethereum. So you can take applications from, L1, copy, paste it onto Taiko, no adjustments, no modifications, and you're good to deploy just like that. So the name of the game is scaling, cheaper transactions, more secured. We really focus on the, type 1 type of rollup. So if you're familiar with Vitalik's article about like the different types of like rollups that there are, all the way from like type 1 to type like 4. Taiko is like the type 1. So we really focus on maximizing compatibility and really following the Ethereum ethos. So not sacrificing on decentralization, permissionlessness, or security.
And can you explain like what type 1 means for those that aren't quite as technical?
Yeah, absolutely. So it means that Type 1 means that we are like the most compatible with Ethereum itself. So it means that you can take like a smart contract code and when you copy, paste, and deploy it, there's no underlying changes to like which opcodes are being executed. So the opcode to opcode like correlation between like Taiko and Ethereum is like 1-to-1. You get like the same expected behavior that you would as if you were on L1. And so as you move down from type 1 to type 4, you lose a little bit of that like compatibility. So that's when you'll see other rollups that have different execution environments. So they'll either have more custom, that they'll be able to interpret like certain languages. So like Aztec, for example, has like Noir. I think like Starknet has Cairo, for example. And so those are like other languages that they've developed that their rollups can interpret on top of like Ethereum bytecode and all that, but that comes at the cost of like compatibility. So when you deploy applications on like those other different types of rollups, then you have to actually make sure that smart contracts and things like that actually like execute properly. You get the same exact expected behavior. So it comes with trade-offs. So some of those are a little faster to like prove and verify and execute to generate like proofs for, and so. With Taiko, it takes a little bit longer because you're really proving, each opcode execution, like the actual Ethereum spec.
You guys have focused a lot on compatibility with Ethereum, but there's also like a whole universe of Ethereum virtual machine compatible chains. Are you guys chain agnostic, or are you focused like solely on Ethereum?
Well, we are EVM like only, so it's just like the Ethereum execution environment. And so yeah, that's sort of what I was touching on a little bit, is where you have these other either more exotic like execution environments or different types of like VMs. But no, we focus solely on like the Ethereum experience, right?
What kind of like scalability and performance boosts does Taiko offer Ethereum users that are looking for like cheaper, faster, more scalable transactions?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are already, since we've deployed on mainnet, and thankfully for the introduction of like EIP 4844 and blob transactions, rollups just across the board have become more performant in terms of, offering cheaper transactions. So like currently on Taiko, you'll see transactions that are, 10x cheaper than mainnet Ethereum, without, without taking without changing the protocol so much that, you're sacrificing like security, decentralization, permissionlessness. So we, because we just released on mainnet, we're taking these, steps here and there to slowly take off like the training wheel, so we can make sure that we have like a proper, safe, secure roll up, like mainnet ready. So, as the months keep going on, we're going to be taking off like training wheels here and there. So, for example, when we first launched, for the first couple of weeks, Taiko was like the sole proposer and prover. But now that we've finally gotten past that point, we've actually made the whole prover proposer network permissionlessness. So permissionless. So no, anybody's able to come along and run a prover or a proposer, propose blocks, prove blocks without permission. You just have to run the node software itself. And so that's a pretty big thing in the rollup space. As far as I know, there's no other projects that currently have like a fully permissionless like proposer approver like sequencer set.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, offering the same thing, again, cheaper transactions, lower fees, but at the same time not sacrificing, not trying to, change any of the three tenets of the decentralization, scalability, and speed.
And can you, I guess, give us like an overview of what a based contestable rollup is?
Yeah, absolutely. So that is, there's a couple words in there. So yeah, based, you have contestable. So there was a lot of learning that we did going from testnet to testnet. And so there were some really cool, interesting ideas that kind of cropped up. So from day one, we were always like a based rollup, right? So what a based rollup is when the base sequencer set, again, so like who's ordering transactions and all that isn't actually like separate from Ethereum itself. So for example, Ethereum, like L1, the L1 validator set of all of Ethereum is basically our entire sequencer set. So we assume the security, all of the security guarantees from Ethereum into Taiko when we utilize this type of protocol design. So you can really reduce like the security like overview, like the general like your security model that you have to look at when you're developing like a rollup. So you really don't have to focus on like having to solve the issue of a centralized sequencer set, which has its benefits, but also has its its issues on the other hand. Having a centralized sequencer set means that you have like one group, one party, or one set of groups of people that control the rollup. And that means that they can do anything from censor transactions, exclude certain addresses, certain people, certain types of transactions. And so that removes like the centralized party aspect of a rollup right off the bat. So that's the base part. The contestable part is all of these rollups, depending on the type of design that they have, either optimistic rollup, ZK rollup. Well, there's a whole sea of different types of ZK proofs, ZK proving systems. There are all these new novel implementations. Things are coming out left and right super fast. Like a research paper comes out, and then the next week you have, a working like actual like prover mechanism that somebody's like put together and developed and released. And the good thing about it is you have lots of options, right? Like if you're building a rollup, like what type of proving system am I going to use? But then that also comes at the issue of like, oh my God, there's all these proving systems, which one am I going to use? Which one's like the best? I don't want to, build with one and then, the next week something comes along and it completely blows my roll up out of the water, And so the contestable part comes in is where you're able to actually stack different proof types into the roll up. So you're not actually relying on the security of one proof type that might not only be like not the most performant itself, but might actually, include some type of like security bug that's, been undisclosed up until this point. So when you have to rely on one proof type itself, the main problem is what if there's a bug, right? You're in production, you're on mainnet, and there's a bug, and somehow somebody's able to push through bad blocks, or they're able to halt the chain because nothing can be proven properly, right? Your whole rollup is at stake. So with the contestable design, you're actually able to like basically plug and play different proving types into your rollup. So you can rely on like fraud proofs, you can rely on like, optimistic proving, actual ZK proving, trusted execution, environment proving. So like you can use things again like normal, like ZK Starks. You can use stuff like these new ZKVMs that are coming through, like SP1, Risk Zero, and then you're able to stack that on top of something like SGX and like fraud proofs. So you can have a multi-tiered proving system. So you're not actually relying on any one proving type to verify your blocks. You're actually able to go through and basically come to a consensus among proving types to ensure the security of your chain. And it comes with the added benefit with when anything else comes along, any new type of proving system that hasn't been seen before, it's way easier to just basically like plug and play, into the actual protocol instead of having to rewrite the whole protocol. So it comes with a few benefits. Yeah.
It's more modular. And then I guess because you're verifying things with different kinds of proofs, it adds more security as well, right?
Right, exactly. You're not relying on the security of one proving type that may have some unforeseen, security issue.
The Taiko token, like what role does the Taiko token play within the Taiko ecosystem?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was like a big thing, over the test nets that, we were also experimenting with. And ultimately it's boiled down to being used as a way to basically pay prover fees. It's a way our like proposers and provers interact, and it basically fuels our decentralized sequencer network economics. So it's as like Ethereum validators and stuff are paid in Ethereum. Proposers and provers have a dynamic between them using the Taiko token to basically incentivize each other to do certain things, like provide a proper proof when a block is proposed.
Okay. And then is there any like governance utility to the token as well, like for the decision-making process?
At the moment, that still hasn't been implemented, but yeah. So again, in part of trying to have Taiko itself be as decentralized as possible, and we want to move the model forward where, Taiko, as time moves on, we want to be as hands-off as we can. We don't want to control the chain. We really want to have this be and feel like Ethereum, where, once it's at like a steady spot, it's a little more hands-off. So we are really, really going to be pushing, and we're really working on like our DAO like design. So I think it's on our roadmap, but I think after a year or so, we're going to start the process of moving things over to a more DAO community controlled like system. And that will rely heavily on the Taiko token. Taiko token holders will be, the people who own and control the Taiko protocol itself.
With the DAO rollout, like I know you said it's coming later this year, but who's currently like administering like funds and making decisions? Is there like a Taiko Foundation or something?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So right now it's like the Taiko Foundation that's making all of the, we're basically like we're kind of watching the protocol grow itself. We're right now it's got training wheels, and there's a few things here and there that still need to get figured out and established. And once we get to that point, yeah, things will transition less from the foundation and more to the community.
I know like there's a lot of interoperability efforts that are being made within like the Ethereum virtual machine compatible chains ecosystem. Are you guys like integrating with any of these other Ethereum L2s or any of these other like EVM compatible blockchains?
As far as I know, like officially, there's nothing like super like set in terms of like with our protocol or protocol design. Like things are open and permissionless. Sorry. So people are basically able to build and deploy whatever they want on Taiko. So I've already seen in like the few weeks that we've been deployed lots of like interop like layers that have deployed. So you have anything from like Polyhedra to Layer 0 that are these interoperability layers, and being in the L2 ecosystem. Of course, we're always really open to being part of that ecosystem. So enabling as much as we can to have things, to have the L2 to L2 like network actually like the ecosystem work. Yeah, we've been trying to really just have our ecosystem flourish with as much as we can.
Cool.
So far.
Another thing that we've seen a lot in like the Ethereum like multi-chain world is this push for ZK EVMs. Can you kind of explain what a ZK EVM is and how it's different from like a traditional Ethereum virtual machine?
Yeah, absolutely. So a ZK EVM, and actually the terminology, you might start seeing it change a little bit, going from like ZK EVM to ZKVM.
Okay.
And so that's sort of what's happened to Taiko over the course of its development. Is we started out as a ZK EVM, and so that is when you're actually taking the EVM and you're implementing it into ZK circuits. Again, pretty much like opcode by opcode, which is what like the privacy and scaling exploration team from like the Ethereum Foundation had been working on. In partnership with like Taiko and like Scroll, and it was a big research effort, and it actually turned out that while all of this was going on, ZK VMs came along, and they kind of made things a little bit faster. So instead of actually implementing circuits to prove the EVM execution opcode by opcode, you actually just prove like the execution of like an Ethereum node, for example. So you don't actually care about the specifics of what's in the EVM. You just care about like the execution of the node software itself. So that's sort of the model that Taiko has moved towards, mainly because of like that modularity aspect that I was talking about, right? So when there's any like upstream changes from Ethereum itself, it's way easier to actually implement that into like a ZK proving system compared to actually like having to implement those new opcodes that come down from like Ethereum L1. But in general, a ZK EVM, again, is just the EVM thrown into like some ZK prover mechanism to be able to prove the execution of whatever goes on in that EVM.
Within the Taiko ecosystem, like what kind of projects are being launched like within the like, are there dApps, are there DEXs, like what kind of things?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a little bit of everything. It's been really interesting. We've seen a lot of like kind of like Taiko native projects. So a lot of projects that haven't really existed outside of Taiko at all. Everything from like liquidity providers to like exchanges to wallets that have come up. There's, right. Yeah. I mean, we're still pretty early, but it's quite a diverse ecosystem that we've seen so far. There's everything from like decentralized identity. So like kind of like how there's like ENS that exists, for Ethereum, people have come along to build like a .Taiko version. And it's been really cool. And there's been really fun integrations that we've seen between that and like games. So there's been quite a few games that have launched on Taiko. And again, they're like first time, deployments, so they're only kind of seen on Taiko right now, like this game called Kraken Stack, and it's really cool. Like they've taken the time to work amongst our ecosystem to all kind of like build integrations on top of each other, and to build like really fun, interesting games. And there's a really big range of general like infrastructure that's there in the Taiko ecosystem. But our testnet phase really acted like a launch pad. So there was a lot of just new, really interesting, bright ideas that kind of came along. And, because it was a testnet, it was free to like deploy and build stuff. And so, they just had an excited audience to go check out their new cool stuff that they were building. So yeah, you've been seeing lots of those projects develop and turn into like real, actual production level, applications.
Nice. Is there like a developer fund or like a place that developers can go if they're interested in building on Taiko?
Yeah, so we have a couple of things. So we have like an ecosystem like grant program. So people who are building things on Taiko, for Taiko, around Taiko, in the ecosystem. However it comes about, it doesn't have to be, like just like an application that you deploy on Taiko. There's like block explorers, people that are helping build like node software, really anything that kind of helps the ecosystem flourish. People have been able to apply for grants. You're able to go up, write a proposal about like, what you're building, the general like, vision of what you've got going on. And we've set aside, I think it was a few million from that first time that we announced the partnerships and the ecosystem grants, just for that solely itself. And I know we definitely haven't exhausted it yet. I think it was, it was a few million. And so we also have this new program that we actually launched alongside Mainnet, and it's called Trailblazers. And it's a really interesting thing where we are trying to incentivize and reward builders and users that come along to Taiko's mainnet and just build and deploy stuff that people use. So builders who, have applications that, whether it's a game or infrastructure or DeFi, you can come along, deploy it on Taiko, and over the next, year, there'll be different seasons and stuff where you can actually win, you could basically earn Taiko tokens based on like how popular and how, useful your project is on Taiko mainnet. And so we actually set aside, it's basically like a small little fund that's twice as large as our initial airdrop amount, just for this program itself. So we really want to see people just come along and deploy and build stuff on Taiko.
The crypto games that you mentioned, are they like building on Taiko because they're leveraging like the scalability improvements that Taiko provides?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's, again, like there's certain applications that, they really only work when you see like a low fee environment, especially in the realm of like games and all that. A lot of the time it doesn't make any sense to, have to pay like a few dollars to get like an essentially free game to deploy. There's been, a lot of projects that have come along in our ecosystem that are really focused on like the low fee aspect of Taiko itself, that really enable new projects. Again, that it lowers the overall like, required overhead that you need to get something off the ground, and especially to attract like a new user base where things feel, a little more new and experimental. So there's a lower barrier for entry for other people to want to try your application out and try things out when you're in such like a low fee environment.
You mentioned that you guys recently launched on mainnet and that you kind of took the training wheels off and made Taiko a lot more decentralized. Like, what changes did you make to decentralize the protocol?
Yeah, exactly. So good question. So there's an overall roadmap of slowly taking some of these like training wheels off, and it's kind of like a tiered system. So it has everything to do with like, removing and changing like owners of like certain L1 or L2 like smart contracts, and changing that from right now it's controlled by the Taiko Foundation itself. Like upgradability of contracts and all that is controlled by like the foundation. And the goal is to have that eventually transition to like a multi-sig that's controlled by like the community DAO itself. And that's like one aspect of it. The other aspect is something, I already touched on, by having the proposer and prover network be controlled solely by the foundation and then moving that to completely permissionless. So anybody is able to, like right now, come along, run the node software and propose Ethereum blocks or blocks to Ethereum and prove that execution of those blocks. And so that's like a really big step that was taken. And so, yeah, these slow, like incremental little steps taken here and there as things are, as we build a confidence in the network itself, once things seem solid and a little bulletproof, then that's when we can transition to moving that to a more decentralized ownership model.
Okay. And to run a node, like, is that achievable by an end user like myself, or is that more being undertaken by like companies within the Taiko ecosystem?
Good question. So I've over the testnets, I'm not like a crazy technical person or anything like that. I'm not a developer, but I've actually been able to run all of like the node software from testnet to testnet. You can running a node itself, like without a proposer or prover, super easy. Anybody can do it. Really low hardware requirements. And a similar thing for running a proposer. Inherently, it's not a very like computationally intense thing. So that's something that you can run on pretty consumer grade hardware itself. And it was something that I personally tried out, through these test nets. It was fairly easy, pretty straightforward. The only like harder to reach thing, and that's just terms of like hardware requirements, and that's just more due to like the nature of like ZK proving and all that, would be running a prover itself. So that has been usually not delegated, but I've found that more like either technical users themselves or like projects focused on like ZK proving have come along and tried to run provers themselves and build solutions on top of that. So that actually kind of brings up a cool point, is there's been a few initiatives that I've seen build from our testnet phases where people are building like decentralized prover pools. So running a prover itself, requires a lot of hardware. That's the nature of like ZK proving and all that. And so I've seen more than one initiative where you're actually able to basically offer whatever hardware, spare hardware that you have, like, your laptop, if you have like a beefy like gaming desktop or whatever, offer up whatever computational resources that you have to contribute to generating those proofs. And then when the proof is generated, you get your little share of what you help generate. And so those are ongoing efforts to help, again, decentralize like the prover generation market. So it's not just reliant on people that have big beefy hardware and expertise.
How did the token get distributed? I know you mentioned an airdrop as part of it, but can you describe like the tokenomics a little bit?
Yeah. So like what aspect in terms of the general like allocation, or how we've...
Yeah, the allocation and how it was distributed to the end users.
Yeah, absolutely. So we set aside like 5% itself for like that initial airdrop, and that airdrop was focused on anybody that really helped participate in our like testnet phase. So anything from running a proposer during the testnet to a prover to just like deploying contracts, running transactions, the usual just general participation. Then we set aside 10% itself just for this like post mainnet Trailblazer thing, so we can incentivize builders and users to interact on Taiko. And outside of that, we have ecosystem funds. So like I had said, things that we had set aside for like these like ecosystem and partner grants. So we can actually have like more specific, like tailored like projects that can come along and say like, hey, we need funding for this. Like we're building this. And then we also have on top of that, like a separate fund just for people who are building things. So we have like request for proposals. So people that want, they're not just building like applications on Taiko, but you're helping build the infrastructure, right? So new features for Taiko, things that help rollups in general, infrastructure that helps bridge certain gaps or help make like the L2 UX a lot more seamless, or things that help with interoperability, things like that. And so all of our tokens have really been like allotted either for like the DAO in the future to be set up to help like manage things, to have like a set fund. So, you know, things are actually going to be able to be paid for in the future when things are a lot more like decentralized. Yeah, so we've tried to really set aside the tokens to work in a smart way to incentivize like growth now, but also like ensure the security and like development in the future.
Is there anything that I haven't asked you about Taiko that's important for the audience to know?
I guess just in general, there are some really cool things coming down the road. There's like right now you're not seeing like the fully formed picture. Like I said, like it's easy to say that like the training wheels are coming off, but that's what a lot of projects say. And there's very fair critiques that, very, intelligent people in like the crypto Twitter space and Web3 space in general, have brought up about how, we're not fully there yet. Taiko is not a completed product, and we really aren't. As a protocol, there's room to grow. Taking those training wheels off is absolutely paramount to making this protocol work, itself. We're really not trying to build a product that we're here like managing and have a long-term plan of having to, have our, direct control over it and, having our ideas dictate, where the protocol goes. Having this be something that feels and looks and like acts like Ethereum itself, like is absolutely paramount to like what we're doing and our goals. So, again, this isn't like a finished product. Like seeing where this goes with the full training wheels off and having it in full community control is something to really like keep your eye on and stay tuned to. And yeah, where we're going with this is really huge. So right now we're a based contestable rollup, BCR, and we are, like we're not done yet. Like just because we built this, it's not like hands up, like, like finished product. Like, we're really focusing on, fixing the issues and like and finding ways to improve like the user experience when dealing with like a based rollup. It's a different type of rollup design that really isn't out there yet, that doesn't really have like a huge, research base behind it, and doesn't have, years of like proven like experience. Like these are things that are still being built out right now. And so, lots of research is being done in terms of like, based pre-confirmations, based booster rollup. And so the based booster rollup is basically the based interpretation and based design of like sequencing, of like shared sequencing. So, with centralized, more centralized models of like sequencers, you can basically, you're seeing projects kind of crop up around shared sequencing. So you can have a shared state between different L2s. And so the based booster rollup is the based version of that design, where you could have a shared state between different L2s, but in a more decentralized manner. And that's something that's like super interesting. It's where, you can really see like a different level of scaling with like a base rollup using the booster model. And that's something that's, it's still a little ways down the line, but it's still something like actively in development. And I think it's just something that's going to be really cool once you see it come to fruition. These are really new ideas that have really been unexplored. So I'm just really interested to see where it ends up, because it might not end up where we think. With these really big new ideas, sometimes they uncover stuff where it's like, oh hey, you know what? Let's take it in this direction. Something super cool. We never even had any idea about it. So I'd say, yeah, just keep your eye out on where the development goes with Taiko and with like based rollups in general. It's a super interesting design space that we're barely just seeing like the start of. So we've got lots to come.
Sounds pretty exciting. What can users look out for in the next couple months, like the next milestones that they can expect? And then how can they get involved with Taiko or follow Taiko on social media and that kind of thing to keep tabs on the progress?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, if you want to keep your eyes out for anything, the best way to do that is either to follow us on Taiko or join our Discord server. So on Twitter, we are or just Taiko XYZ. So we always post out like our announcements, what we're up to, cool things, important, information for you guys to be updated on Twitter. So that's the best place to kind of keep an eye on things. Certain milestones to look out for. A really big one is this Trailblazer program. So we just barely kicked it off. Like last week, we're just getting things rolling. So,
Wow.
It's never too late. It's like a multi-season thing. So, just because you're not early doesn't mean, you're late. So there's going to be different like weeks with different themes, different seasons, different ways to like interact and like, be able to like earn rewards for doing, just general things that you would normally do on, any other L2. And that's something to really keep your eye out on, because again, we really did set aside like a lot of resources for this. It's twice as large as our initial Genesis airdrop. We really want, again, it's just really all about rewarding like people who are here and showing up now. There's being early and catching things before anybody else, but again, it's not all about being early. It's not all about having like the best, alpha compared to everybody else. It's just, you're here now, let's reward you. It's a good time to just come hang out, try something out, try minting a silly little NFT or play a game or whatever. It's super simple. It doesn't have to be complex. Try and find your favorite wallet, just connect to the Taiko mainnet, bridge some funds over, mess around.
Well, Alex, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was a pleasure interviewing you about Taiko.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I appreciate the invite. I appreciate being here. It was a total blast. And I always love just talking about Taiko. I can ramble.
Nice. Well, thanks again for coming on, man. It's been a pleasure, and looking forward to your progress over the near future.
Absolutely, man. Thank you. I really appreciate it.